Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Adam Ratliff with Adam So Fun, and today we are going to tackle those borders with cornerstones. So in our first episode, so we are in the busting, what did I call it? Busting Up Borders? The Busting Up Borders series. And in the first one, we did an edge-to-edge design inside some borders. So if you wanted to do an edge-to-edge design, but you don't want to stitch over everything, you want to do something different in those outside borders, I showed you how I like to do it. Again, 100 different ways to do everything. This is just the way I like to do it. In episode 2, we went ahead and we chunked one of those borders. Now, would I do it like that? Almost never. 98% of the time, no, I don't chunk my borders just because I find it easier and faster to do it one of the next 2 ways that I'll teach you in the next 2 weeks, or I guess this week and next week. Either one, wrapping the corners or having cornerstones, either way, I like to turn my quilts. So today we're going to talk about adding those cornerstones, and then at the end we're going to turn the quilt to be able to add the interior design elements in the center. To me, this is probably the easiest way to do a border because there's not anything that you really have to line up because you don't have a corner unit that's wrapping around that you have to get to connect. But it's all about the look. It's all about the look you're going for. So you have 2 more weeks in the Busting Up Borders series, and to find that playlist, you can go to you're already on my YouTube channel. Well, you're watching my video, but you're not on my channel. But if you hit my face down below, and then at the top, there'll be like videos and blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what the things are, but one of them says playlists. If you go to that playlist tab, it will show all of the different playlists I have. So this video will show up in a few, but if you're just looking for border stuff, that's the one you want to hit, the Busting Up Borders. So, as always, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you're notified when new videos drop. I do try to put a new video out every Friday. Had a little bit of a hiatus because of life, but it happens, right? Oh, also, give me a thumbs up. It's 2022. We're keeping it positive this year. So before we get into the video, I want to do one last shout out to Rhonda in Ponca, Arkansas. She's one of my great friends. She actually surprised me and sent me and Ben shirts from, they run the Buffalo Outdoor Center in Ponca, Arkansas. So if you're if you're in the area, you should stop by. I don't know what it's around other than beauty. Oh my gosh, the pictures. You should just go look at them on Facebook, look at them online. The photos there are fantastic, so beautiful. And like she'll send me pictures of elk and stuff. So shout out to you, Rhonda. Thank you for always being the sweetest gal I know. And now we're gonna jump over to the Pro Stitcher and we're gonna work with adding borders with cornerstones. See you in a second. Alright, so we're at our quilt. We're going to be working in this block border. And this is the one where I'm going to add a cornerstone. It works nicely because there's a block there that'll help us do our points for that. And so we're going to add a cornerstone over there, and then we're going to add a design in the center. We're not going to worry about the sides. We'll advance to the bottom. We're going to add a cornerstone, do our design, and then we're going to turn the quilt and put the side borders on. This border in particular, the blocks are all facing as if this interior of the quilt is the top. So you'll see this top row is upside down. The side rows all point in towards the center. The blocks in the corner kind of are at the diagonal. This drives me nuts. Because I have to, when something's happening like this, you kind of have to think of what's going on to see how you're going to orient that border and make it work. We're going to make it work. It's going to be fine. It'll be one more step in creating the design that I want to use across the center, but it's going to be fine. I'm just being a drama queen. So first thing we're going to do is we need to create borders around our corner blocks. So I'm going to come up to my area tab. Oh, surprise everyone. I did finally update to 537. I did it this morning. I made a quick video for my new series that will launch soon. So keep an eye out for that. If you are subscribed, you'll get notified when those videos release. But I'm in my area tab. We can use the star if we want to use 2-corner. We can use the diamond if we want to use multi-point. I always multi-point this because things usually are not straight, and I'm looking at this quilt top and I know it's not straight. So I'm going to be hitting the diamond on my right handlebar. So I am going to just create this one corner. Now, if you look at this border, you'll see these two strips. I included them as part of this whole border. So it's not just the block, it's the block and the two strips. I did not do a little tiny ditch right there. Same thing up here. I included the two strips in this center, in this border, the kind of straight line border. So it's all about what you want to do. That's what you should do. I decided that this looked like it was one large piece. So I usually start in the corner, and I'm just starting where that stitch was. Multi-point, move to the left, multi-point, move up, and I'm going to have to add a few because, again, not straight. Now this one's tricky. There's a few things you can do. If you want this to be just a perfect square, the best way to find that top point is to come back to your starting point, hit your channel lock on your screen, and then move it straight up. And you can see how wonky this is not, how wonky this is loaded. And I think I don't know if it's because it's cut weird or I loaded it crooked. I don't know. Some of the other stuff was super straight. Well, I guess none of it was straight compared to the other videos. But I'm just going to work with it crooked because, again, sometimes that happens. And let's go look at my block. That's a pretty wonky block. So when I have something like this, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to say, okay, we need to find something that's going to fit in here and not going to be noticeable because it's still kind of square. It's just not the best square. So File, Tab, Design, Open. We're just going to use a PS design. Let's go look through those blocks. I know what I want to do for my continuous line. I'm going to teach you a trick that I found out by just playing around. And it's going to be very linear. I was thinking about using block of lines. So we're going to open this. But we're also going to open, well, let's see this first. So here's our block of lines. What's the easiest way to get that there? Modify, skew in the ribbon. As long as our design is selected, we have options. Now you'll see I updated. So we have skew, border skew, triangle skew. Triangle skew will only work if you have 3 points. So if you are creating a triangle and say I'm going to create one and I go ding, 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 triangle skew works. If you close that triangle, ding, you have 4 points, then it won't work anymore. And you can see your points by tapping on your area tab. You'll see how many points are there. So I have 12 points in my square. So I'm going back to, oh man, we're gonna hit undo. That's what undo is for. Modify tab, skew. I always hit skew 1 first to see what it looks like. Now that looks horrible. We'll hit bottom mouse refresh. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And that's because skew works best with 4 points, and really it works best when you have a rectangle, when you have right angles. So let's hit border skew. That's not too bad. It's going to come out of the line a little bit over here. I don't really care about that. I'm actually going to use this still because I like how this looks. I thought it was going to be a little bit too funky. So what do we always do after a baseline? I feel like Dora the Explorer. After a skew. I just gave away the answer. What do we always do after a skew? We always hit baseline. You want to baseline this. We need to freeze it how it currently looks. And I'm just going to shrink it a little bit from side to side. So I'm going to go to resize. My lock is not on. I can see my horizontal blue line right there. I can just shrink it once. And I can reposition and nudge it. And now there's my corner block. Is it going all the way to the lines, all the way around? No. Am I okay with that? Yes. And actually, I might bring this in. I didn't even think about this, but I do have those extra borders on here. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to, let's undo this. I'm going to undo those resizes. There we go. Because I'm going to resize this. I'm going to keep it proportional. I'm going to shrink it in so it looks like it's about a 1/4 inch from the borders. I think this might work. Maybe there. Because then I could have put the real block there. I'm gonna move my machine, so I'm gonna move you really quick because I gotta get my machine over here, and I'm gonna put my crosshairs on that line. So that is about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and that is about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and it kind of lines up in the seam. Let me show you. So remember, I'm keeping these as part of my block, or as part of my border. It kind of lines up with this seam right here. So I think that is going to work pretty well. Even if it's off a little bit, I'm not really that worried because we're putting a design in there. It is what it is. It's going to look good. I like this. I'm going to baseline it one more time. Oops, let's go to the screen. So I'm going to baseline this one more time. And this is what we're going to keep. Now we're going to jump over to the other side. Let me move you. So here we are. First thing, I need to make a new area. So I'm going to go to my area tab. I'm going to hit clear. Refresh house. And now I'm going to create an area around this top corner block. So it's a little bit wonky too, and again, I'm okay with that, not a big deal. So I have my block selected. I can tell because it's dark. I'm gonna go to Edit, Duplicate, because this is already resized to the size I want. It might work here, it might not. We're gonna go to Modify, Align, and over on our line, we have a lot of options. You can go watch Playing in Pro Stitcher to see what all those do. We're just gonna hit Center. And I can... Where's my zoom? Oh, I'm already on zoom. We're going to zoom into this one. I'm going to see where that's laying in proportion to those outside borders. Because remember, the other one was done with those outside borders, stitching kind of in the ditch. Sorry if my face gets in the camera. Looks good, looks good, looks good. Looks good. Looks good, looks good. Oh, I like that. Look, and now our two corners are done. How easy is that? If I needed to edit that some, I could make it a little bigger. It doesn't have to be exactly like this one because it's so far away that nobody's going to notice any difference. So baseline. We didn't even do anything to it. We just moved it, but we're still going to baseline it. So now we're going to area and we're going to hit clear. All right, so now I'm going to move you to the center and see if we can do this. Well, first thing, I'm going to save this. File, save, selected. I have to remember where I saved everything else. Did I make an Atom file? Atoms of Fun? I just did this in the last video, but I don't remember where I saved things. Atom. Here's my Atom file. This is where we're going to save them. This is going to be my block corner. It's saving. So now I have it saved. I should have saved this one, but I forgot to do it. So we saved it there. Just want to check one thing. Perfect. All right, so now we have our corner saved because when we get to the bottom, this is what we're going to use again. So now I want to create an area for the space between these. So I want to create an area that encompasses this border. And I usually always, I always start in the left. I don't know why. So I'm in my area tab and I will ding around this. as you're dinging around, you have to be kind of aware of what you're doing. You know, where you're putting your points, where your area line is going. I'm gonna pop you back up to the screen, because if you're gonna do something that goes out to the line, in my case, I know what design I'm gonna use, and it's gonna ride along that top line. I have to be really precise up there. The bottom line, not so much, because it's just gonna go to it. We're not gonna go over it. It's not gonna stitch on it, but we are gonna end up stitching on this bottom line. So I have to be super, super aware. We're gonna go File, Design, Open. And when you're using continuous lines, when you're using borders and designs that are designed for border, usually it's a continuous line design. All of these you can put in a border. Some are going to work better than others. Like the dump truck actually works pretty well. The dinosaurs work pretty well. Something like, where's that? The Blustery Breeze. It's going to be a very, very busy design in that border. Bubbling Over, very busy design in that border. So maybe those are something you're not going to use. But in this case, I'm going to think outside the box, because what do? That's what Adam So Fun does. And we're going to jump over to these triangles. If you want to use a triangle as an edge to edge, you have to make sure that it starts on one side and ends on the other. So not all triangles would work. Like this one is going to work over and come back. Go over and come back. This one probably goes over and back and over. So that chevron triangle probably could be done with an edge to edge. So you have to see where their start and stops where the start and stop points are, because that's very important when you're doing those edge to edges. In this case, and I was just playing one day and I came across this. We're going to use this chevron 3 and we're going to hit open. And you're going to be like, well, that's not really going to work in here. And watch what happens when we do this as an edge to edge. First thing I want to do though is I need to rotate this, because I want it to point the opposite direction. And the reason for that is I want the points to come up this way instead of flipped. I don't want them shooting up from this side, because I feel like they need to be, like the mountains need to be coming up the same way the blocks are. It's me being picky. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to modify, and usually I could hit flip, and flip would probably, actually flip's going to work better in this case. We're going to hit flip. I was going to rotate it and switch my start and ends, but if I just flip it, I don't have to worry about switching my start and ends. So, all right, so now we're going to repeat this, but I want to do one thing before we repeat this. I want to see how big my blocks are, because I have those 4 blocks. I don't think it's going to matter. Actually, we're not going to do that, because I don't think it's really going to matter. So I'm going to put my crosshairs. This is the center of one of those blocks. If I come down, you can see that I'm eyeballing the center of that A. This might not work perfect, because I'm thinking I want those points to kind of hit those centers. I don't think it's going to work. I wonder if I do 8 instead of 4. Let's see. So we're going to repeat. Watch what happens when I repeat this. Although the start and stop is not in the correct place, watch what happens. Horizontal, repeat. You get this really cool overlap design, and I'm okay with that. So if I do 4 and I stretch it horizontally, yeah, see how it's not really fitting? Let's add another one. Oh, that's pretty close. Let's see if it's close on the next one. It's not. So I'm not going to get these to fit the way I wanted them to, but I'm okay with that. That is not really a deal breaker for me. I actually like 6 of them too. I think it's a little less spread out. So I have 6 repeats. I'm going on to my vertical sidebar, or my sidebar, vertical in my sidebar. I'm going to hit stretch to fill the space. I like that, and this is why I said I'm going to use that top line. I like how this looks. We're going to edit it a little bit more, but I'm going to hit baseline. And if I zoom in over here, see how we're going out, because stretch is not going to fit it exactly perfect. Let's see if we go to modify and we skew and border skew. Border skew is going to bring it up or bring it in. It's not going to let it go outside the line at all. It's also going to move it up so it's right on that line where I was very precise. And it's going to come all the way to the points, or to the line at the top. So What do we always do after a skew? We hit baseline, and now I'm doing one more thing. I'm going to align vertical. I'm going to hit top because I don't want this to move. And then I'm going to resize, turn my lock off, and shrink my height just a little bit. So now by aligning it to the top, it's frozen up here, and I've shrunk it a little bit. So now we're good there, and we're going to hit baseline. And now I'm going to go File, Save, Selected. And we have to remember where I just saved the other one. I think it was on my D drive, why I didn't save them in the same thing. And we can save this as repeat chevron 3, that's fine. Usually I change the name, but when you repeat something, it's gonna be fine to keep it. So now I have my top border done. Now I will tap off, select nothing. I'm going to select all. It has my corner, my chevron, my top. Over here I see my group. I do not want it to stitch out this way because it's going to stitch my left square, my right square, and then come back into the chevrons, and I'm not that lady. So I'm going to pick my block, my second piece, which is block of lines 28. We can see it turns red when you pick it, and I'm selecting it inside this group. I'm going to push down to change the stitch order, and you'll see all those jump changed. So now it's going to stitch here, it's going to do my chevrons across, and then it's going to do my last corner. Baseline it because we're about to stitch this out, and now I'm ready to stitch. All right, so now my first border is done. I've done my cornerstone, everything on the inside, my other cornerstone. I have this design saved, and I have this design saved, so setting up the bottom is gonna be even easier. So I'm gonna advance to there, and I will see you back here in a second. I did wanna say one thing. My lines got off a little bit here, and when I was making my area, I was like, thinking in my head about like, oh, I should tell people, you know, whatever. I said something as I was making the area or right after I finished. This is when I started thinking about that. That's what happens. When you start thinking about things, you aren't very accurate. That's why I usually put my dots a little bit on the inside. Oh, I think I was actually thinking about telling you to be really accurate when you do this because we're going to restitch over there. Great job, Adam. At the end of the day, this is just a quilt. See you back in a second. All right, so we're here at the bottom of the quilt, and just in case you didn't watch the video when I stitched the interior, we have this little ripple here. And this ripple happens when you don't stabilize the fabric well enough, and I didn't stabilize this border at all. In real life, I probably would have. Well, I would have stitched this bottom part and not been rolling back and forth. If I was rolling back and forth, I would have thrown a zigzag stitch or something in here to stabilize it because it's a little bit bigger. But if you get this, we can just kind of push that fabric up and distribute it into the block itself or into the border itself. Once it's stitched, we're not going to be able to see it, but that's kind of how you can get rid of that. So we're going up to the screen. All right, so I think you all know how to make areas. So I'm not going to show you me dinging around the area, but we need to make our first area. So we're going to our area tab, and I'm going to ding around it. All right, so we have our first area. I'm gonna go, I wanna go to my File tab, Design, and we want the block corner. So we're just gonna open it. I don't have to flip this. I don't have to do anything to it. All I need to go is modify. Look how wonky that block is. Good job, Adam. Modify, align in the ribbon. We're gonna hit that center button again. I will check it. Wow, that's way wonk. It's still stitching where I like it. It's on that line. And how, oh, you can't even see this. Sorry. How I'm checking is I'm just moving the crosshairs on the line and seeing where it's on my laser light on the quilt. This is that corner coming up. Look how different it is. We might just redo this one. That's pretty wonk right there. So this is what happens. 'Tis life. We are going to file. I'm gonna clear, not clear all. I'm gonna close selected. I just want to close the design, and I'm gonna open the chevron block again. Nope, not the chevron block. Close selected. I want the block of lines. So now we're doing modify. I'm going to skew. I'm going to border skew because we know skew 1's not going to work. Baseline this, refresh house so we can see, and now I can resize this again by turning that lock on. That looks much better. Very much better. I'm liking it. I might reposition this down just a tad to get it lined up on my line down here. Perfect. There's my first block. Now I'm not going to worry about saving this one. Baseline. Oops, you didn't see that. I just hit baseline. Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see the screen. I baseline this. I'm not going to save this one because we have the other one saved. We're going to try to use the other one again on the other side. But we're going to our area and I'm going to hit clear. Now in the first, at the top, we did our cornerstone and then we did the other cornerstone and then we did the center. This one we're going to do a little bit different. I'm going to move you over. I'll move you back a little bit because I'm going to do the center part next because I want it to stitch in that order anyway, so we don't really have to worry about it. So I'm in my area. I've already cleared my area, so I'm going to make my area around the center blocks. This time I'm going to be very precise on the bottom because of how it's oriented. I'll turn you down because now the designs are all pointing to the top, so we want all of the chevrons to point toward the center. Now you heard me make a million points, and that's because it's a little bit wonky, and I want to be precise, so I will put a lot of points. There are 27 points in this. I think last time there were like 12. So there's my design. Oops, sorry for the shakiness. I'm going to go to File, Design, Open. I want to do my repeat chevrons. These are the ones I saved. So first step, we want to go to Modify, and we need to rotate and flip these. I could rotate them around. We're just going to hit flip because that's what we did last time. Now I have that design. I will go skew, and we're just going to skew it in there. Border skew. Fits great. And then we're going to baseline this because we always baseline after a skew. Now I want to resize, or I want to go to align. This time I want to align it at the bottom. So I'm going to hit on my vertical tab, I'm going to hit bottom because I want to keep it on the bottom, and I want to resize this and I don't want to resize everything. Turn your lock off and resize it a bit. And I saw where the last ones hit, and I think they hit about here. Perfect. So now these chevrons are just like the last chevrons, and I'm eyeballing how big they are. Again, we're on the different side of the quilt. If it was gonna bug me, I would make sure I knew the height, but they went up about to this part of the design. So if I just put my laser light here and looked at the horizontal line of my chevrons, and I can see the top hits those, so that's what I'm looking for. Baseline. So now my center part is done. Area tab, clear my area. Now we're going to work over in our last square. So we're in multi-point around it. We'll zoom in so we can see. And here's our last wonky square. File, design, open. We want to open our block corner. We'll see if this one works. Modify tab, align center. Let's zoom in. I don't think this is going to work either. Just looking at it, how the bottom is twisted some. So we're going to file, close selected. Most of the time on our piece blocks, they're loaded a little straighter. Oh, I didn't want to do that. File, design, we want block of lines. And we're just going to repeat that same process. Modify, skew, border skew, because we know that one's going to work better. Baseline. I'll zoom in so it's nice and big. Now we want to resize, turn the lock on, and shrink it until it looks like it's about where we want. We could move our needle to this corner, because this is kind of our reference corner that I've been using. I'll move the camera over here. This has been our reference corner this whole time for how we want our horizontal line and vertical line. So now when I come up here, I can see that we went too small, because see how we've just shrunk it way up? So we're gonna increase the height. We'll go about there, and we can also rotate this one a little bit, because this side is a little bit wonk. And then now reposition. So I used modify rotate. I'm using custom rotation. My custom rotation is set to 0.1. So every time I hit left or right, it goes 0.1 of a degree. And then I go to reposition, which is 0.01. So it moves at 0.01 of an inch. And now I can line those lines up. That's off a little bit, but it's going to be so small you're not even going to be able to tell. And now I can stitch these three out. So I want to come down here. This is select all. It's stitching my first square, then stitching my border, then stitching my second. I always come back to the workspace and make sure that's what this says. We're going to hit baseline, and watch when we baseline this. We have a group right now. We're going to baseline, and now we have that merged group. That means we've frozen everything together, and now I'm going to stitch this out. All right, so there is the bottom border. So now the top and bottom are done, and it's time for me to turn the quilt. So I will be right back to show you how I do that. All right, everyone, so this is what you've all been waiting for. The top and the bottom are done on both ways, the square corners and the wrapped corners. Two different videos. I don't know which one you're watching, but this part is gonna be in both of them. So the sides are done. I need to unclamp, take the quilt off of the frame, and we're gonna turn it and reload it. So I'm gonna take off my bungees. I have my magnetic clamps I've made. Maybe I'll make a video for that. Undo my ratchets. I am using zipper leaders, so I can unzip. Watching not to poke myself. And this is the most satisfying thing of everything. When you're done with the quilt, you're gonna just grab it and pull. We're also unzipping here. Mr. Ozzy Posborn is soon gonna have a quilt. So now I have my my quilt done, or not done, but what I can do done. I'm going to take my pins out. Now, I have been getting people ask me about the zippers. I am loving these zippers. The downside, like of everything, you're still using pins. Some people will stitch based on their machine onto the zippers and stuff. I'm just not a fan of that. I felt that it was taking me longer to do that than to pin. And I'm still pinning, but I'm not pinning at the machine. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you, and I'm on my, sorry, I have to think of what I'm doing, or these are going. So this is the bottom of the quilt. So I'm going to put this one here. We'll load the top first. I'm not standing at my machine and pinning, so I can pin anywhere. I can watch TV with Ben, and I can pin on the couch. Oh, and this, I know what this panel is called now. This is by Michael Miller, and it's Buddy Bear. So, again, I bought these panels maybe 2 years ago or so off of Connecting Threads. But it is a Michael Miller fabric, so you might be able to see them still. I do have a dog somewhere. It's floating around here. But yeah, a good practice panel. There's probably other panels out there like it that would work really well. Especially if you're wanting anything with a grid on it, you could practice borders on. So this is my top, so I'm going to hold this one here. All right, so this is what the panel currently looks like. Toro. This is what the back looks like. So you can see where we've stitched and where we haven't. So you can see that I have these borders open. Again, if this were real life, if this was a real quilt, I would have done a zigzag stitch through this thicker border. And not necessarily through the thin one. The thin one's small enough, but the thicker border I would have just, not tight, not like densely, but ran a little zigzag to hold it and to keep it from shifting. So now I am going to turn my quilt. And what I mean by that, this is the top and bottom. I'm literally going to turn the quilt. And now this is going to be my top. And the bottom side is going to be my bottom. So, for this to work, for it to work well, you do need to square up your backs. So just keep that in mind when you're, before you load something, if you have something with borders, because you're going to need a straight edge on those backs. And it's much easier to do it before you have the quilt on than after. I'm just finding my center point and adding a pin. I'm going to do that on both sides. I have Cyndi Lauper stuck in my head because Ben's watching Never Been Kissed. Alright, so now I have my centers marked on the top and bottom. And I pin better when it's away from me, so I'm going to turn it around. So this is my top, and I'm standing like as if I were standing behind the machine. I'm going to grab my zipper, and on the zipper, this is why I get them only from the Quilting Connection. This is the quick zip system. Backing fabric, bottom left side. Well, this is the bottom. I want the top. I must have not been paying attention. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. Oh, you know why I thought this? We talked about this in that square one, but I was looking at the quilt like this. I thought I had the bottom. Or I thought I had the bottom because the people were right side up. But really, remember the top row's upside down? Dumb. All right, so I got my other zipper. And this one says, not that side, backing fabric, top left side. So this is my top. My top left side is going to be over here. And I usually lay the zipper out. My zipper has the center marked. My pin is center marked. And I try to lay the zipper out so it doesn't shift. There's my center. I'm just lining things up and putting my center pin in. And Angie at the Quilting Connection taught me, don't overpin, because that's when you get ripples. So I do pin a lot less now, or use a lot less pins than I used to, and I already didn't use a ton. I left like a 1/2 inch space, and now I'll do like 1.5 inches. Angie, if you watch this and I'm leaving too much space, let me know. But the other thing with this is, remember, most of, even if this was a big quilt, even if this is like 100 by 100, the rest of the quilt is stabilized. You've already stitched it. So as you're working through this and pinning this on, you don't have, like, things aren't shifting. It's one, you're basically reloading a finished quilt. It just has a few strips that you forgot. Well, you didn't forget them. You forgot them on purpose. You are going to have that one time you take the quilt off and then you look at it and say, oh, I forgot something. That happens. You can reload that quilt up. I reloaded a quilt that had a binding on once. It wasn't the funnest thing to do. But just depending on the application, what you're doing, what it looks like. I had to, based on like a leader, I called it my loading leader on one before because I had trimmed it. And I'm just like, I'd rather just based on something than pin through the whole thing. I still do have my red snappers, so sometimes I'll just snap those on. Alright, so I have one side done. Swing to the other side. So this is my top left. And this should be pin to bottom left. There's my center mark. I've been so busy with different projects, I have stuff all over. And usually I would have my table clean and it's not clean, so I can't use my whole table because the table's not clean. It's a travesty. But you know, when you're home for 10 days, you gotta make the most of it. Other things that I can talk about. I'm gonna finish pinning this. I'll see you right here in a second. All right, so now we have the top and the bottom pinned on. We're ready to reload. And since I'm using the zippers, I'm just gonna zip them on. There's one side. Oops. And if you have zippers, make sure when you zip it on, you're not just zipping it on over here. We need to go under. Well, depending on how you're loaded. I need to go under my bar. Make sure my leaders are rolling nice. Put my leader grippers, which are just so tight magnets. And that's how easy and fast it is to flip your quilt, load it back on. Even if I was pinning at the machine, I would still pin here or snap it here. Whatever loading system you're using, it's not that hard. And there's no math. So if you watch that chunking video, I don't have to worry about like, is this gonna fit? Is it not gonna fit? How many can I do in my pass? I just reload the thing. And you're gonna see how fast it is once it's loaded, it already is, how fast it is to line those designs up. So we're gonna see you back here in a second in whichever video you're watching. All right, so we're back and we have turned the quilt. So if we look down, Here's our quilt. It's sideways. Here's our little friend. So we have to stick in the border side of this blocks border. This is going to be so easy. So first thing, always, we're going to create that area. So I'm going to my area tab, and I'm going to ding around this. Now remember, when we did the other sides, when we did the far side, let me move you back a little bit. When we did this side and that side, we decided that the peaks of our design and we're going to face up. Basically, they are working from the bottom up. So this outside border that runs around the polka dot is our reference line for the bottom of these, we're going to call them mountains for lack of a better word. So when I make this area across this back, I'm going to be pretty precise because again, I want it to stitch right over that seam. I want it to be right in the ditch I created. And now I can work my way back on the front edge. So now I have my area set up. Let's come, I'm gonna bring you close. So there's my area. We have to pick our design, file design open. I don't even think we made a specific design here for those triangles. I don't remember what they're called. So let's cancel this. Design open, and I think they're hopefully still here. Repeat, there's my chevrons. So here's my chevron. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to modify, rotate, and flip it because that's what we did last time, and we're working from the top up. Now, we have 6 blocks across this border. I'll turn you down and show you. We have 6 blocks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the sides, we had 4, and for 4 blocks, we used 6 repeats, or a total of 6 repeats. So basically for every 2 blocks, we had 3 repeats. So since we have an extra 2 blocks, I'm gonna use 9 repeats, and it should work out math-wise to be the same. So we're coming here, we're gonna hit repeat, and I want 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm gonna hit point to point for best practice, and we're going to baseline this. Now we can hit, let's see, modify, skew, border skew. And I'm going to move my crosshair to the center of my first design, and look at that, it actually worked. So let me show you what I'm looking at. Because this one and the last one, the peak is going to hit in the center of that block. So it's center-ish. How about center-ish? So yay! I'm excited about that because I thought it would work, but I wasn't really sure. So things that happen in an Adam So Fun video. All right, so our points are hitting in the center of our C block, or center-ish. Perfect. I wasn't sure if this was going to work. Now this border's a little bit wonky. We can see it goes and then it kind of shifts at the very top. Don't ask me what I did. We're going to say it was printed wrong. But I do know that I don't want it. I want the peaks to kind of shrink up some. So we're going to go to align. So modify align. Remember, if we align this vertically to the top. Oh, I forgot a baseline. What do you do after you skew? You always baseline. Now we're going to align to the top. And now when I go to my modify resize, I'm going to select height. When I shrink this, it's going to hold that top row in place. And we're just going to shrink it a little bit. We're going to see that it's a little bit wonky. And so I just want to see where it's sitting. That'll work. I think that'll work good. It looks a little funky over here. It doesn't look like it went too far. But there's a lot going on in that block. So I think that's going to work. So let's baseline this, and I'm going to stitch this out. Alright, so now this side is done and we can advance. I want to show you something really quick because I was talking about being really precise and adding our points and everything. Well, when I have the camera here and I'm making videos, oftentimes I'm working around the camera and I have a tendency to lean on my bars. Which, whatever, it is what it is. I'm not worried about it. But I want to show you what happens when you lean on the bars. So I'm going to zoom, I need to see, we're zooming in right here. That's real zoomed. Is that the dog? Okay. So, if you look right here where everything is perfectly overstitched, this was when I leaned on the bar while it was stitching. Because I was leaning on the bar when I was making that area, trying to work around the camera. So when I didn't lean on the bar while stitched, I stitched over into the black, and I can show you. You can see it going across. I was looking, I was like, what was going on? Like, I know that I was being precise, but I was leaning on the bar. The littlest lean will move stuff, will adjust, or will shift things just enough. It's gonna ruin your designs, especially if you're trying to be accurate. So this one right here that you're looking at, the first line, there's kind of three, because I leaned on the bar for the first time. One of them is the ditch, and then I stopped leaning on the bar and I got that stitch on the outside. If we go a little bit farther to the right, because I had stopped leaning on the bar, you can see those lines are over stitching themselves. So just keep that in mind. If you lean on the bar, these were leaned on while I stitched and leaned on while I made an area. If you lean on the bar while you create an area, your area is, you're shifting that quilt. So that's why we say don't lean on bars, because things aren't going to be that accurate. Now this far away, can you even see that? No. But I can see it. Standing here, I can see it. So I wanted to show you. Now that top row's done, I'm going to advance to the bottom row. We'll be right back. Alright, so we're at the bottom row. I'm going to do my first step again, which is making an area. So I'm just going File, Clear All, and I'm going to ding around my row. This time I'm not going to lean on the bar. We have our area. Wonky again, that's fine. File, Design, Open. We want Chevron 3. This time we don't even have to rotate it. I'm going to go to my repeats. I need 9 of them. Point to point for best practice. Baseline. Now we're going to modify skew, border skew. What do we always do after a skew? We baseline. I'll set my crosshairs up to where I want those designs to fall. Align, so modify align. On my sidebar I want to hit bottom, and I want to resize the height. And I think I want to go up a little bit. Let me see where that hits. Oh yeah, that's much better. There we are. So now this one's done, baseline. This is why I turn my quilts. We set that up in like 30 seconds. Let me stitch it out. And now that border is done, and if that were the only border I had on my quilt, we're done with the quilt. Alright everyone, so that was doing a border with cornerstones, and instead of trying to chunk it, we're turning the quilt. So cornerstone border, turning the quilt. Cornerstone border, turning the quilt. Say that 10 times fast. But as always, thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't, please like, subscribe to the channel, and give me a thumbs up, and make sure you hit that bell icon so you're notified when those new videos drop. I do try to drop a new video every Friday. Follow me on social media, Adam's So Fun with an SEW on Facebook and Instagram, where you see more content that doesn't all land on the YouTube page. And there's one more thing. I can't remember. You know me, I forget. So at the end of the day, it's just quilting. We want to laugh. We want to have a good time. We'll see you in that next video when we turn the corners and turn the quilt. Bye, everyone. Have a great one.